If I had one wish concerning child sexual abuse, I would wish it to end. The trauma that it causes is enormous. I would wish for trauma-free lives for children. And with regard to what we deal with primarily at Stop the Silence, it's the child sexual abuse. It's also to help survivors get the help that they need, provide enough information out to the public, to individuals, to communities, to society as a whole, so that this issue is not as stigmatized as it is and becomes known as the public health issue that it absolutely is. But in fact, that's why I insisted on calling it Stop the Silence, Stop Child Sexual Abuse, because there simply was just not enough being done.
The mission of Stop the Silence, and in what we do with our outcomes methodology, is that we have delved into what we're really trying to achieve in the near term and in the long term. And there are two things out in the long term that Stop the Silence is trying to achieve. One is to eradicate all preventable child sexual abuse. And the second is to heal 100% of every survivor who we can get to come forward.
The barriers are huge. Barriers are stigma, fear, emotional devastation. What we need to make sure that we do is to invite people in to lessen the stigma, to lessen the fear, and as I said before, to address this as a public health issue, just as we would HIV, just as we would breast cancer, just as we would any other social or physical health issue.
In the entire universe of healthcare grants and funding in the U.S. federal government, for example, the large percentage of those are oriented toward physical health. A small portion of those are oriented toward mental health, but a minority. Within the mental health sector, and if you look at the amount of funds that are dedicated to children's mental health, it's a smaller percentage still.
We know how to do public health. We know the research that it takes. We know the communication. We know information about communication and how people receive and act on information. We know how to evaluate programs. We know how to expand programs. We're not doing it. The biggest enabler of child sexual abuse is the lack of attention to it. Again, we know how to do this. We're just not doing it at the level that we need to do it yet.
I think there are two things that the United States could do to help organizations like Stop the Silence achieve their goals. The first thing I think that we can do is to start the conversation and actually stop the silence, and that would be through television discussion, radio, public discussions, political discussions, to treat child sexual abuse as the mental health issue that it really is, and not just a headline on a tabloid paper. That would be a very big change and a positive change.
My name is Piper Dellins, and I'm the International Ambassador for Stop the Silence, Stop Child Sexual Abuse. I am a United Nations delegate, CSW 58, the Commission on the Status of Women. I am a writer, a public speaker, a filmmaker, an educator, an advocate, and a victim. I am also a survivor.
Stop the Silence is a member or partnering with a number of groups in the United States and throughout the world. And locally, as well as the national and international organizations, of course, we partner with the social service groups, we partner with the schools, we partner with churches and other religious institutes and a number of universities to help invite people to connect with this issue, to open hearts and minds. And then we bring in the information once those hearts and those minds are open. There is so much around the family with regard to this. However, I mean, in the United States, 90 to 94% of offenders know and have access to children on a regular basis. And that issue alone tells us that this is a familial issue. 40% of that 94% are family members. And the closer you get to the family, the harder it is to deal with, because the issue of fear and stigma and shame.
On the healing side, I think it really is vital that we understand the trauma-related aspects of these mental health issues that these kids are facing in their lives, the economic impact that it has on us as a society, and the importance of all of that, and then to actually change the priorities and the willpower to move the resources in the direction to deal with it properly.
In order to help prevent and treat child sexual abuse, our responsibility as adults is to make sure that we have the information that we need about the signs and the symptoms, the possible signs and symptoms of child sexual abuse. You know, a kid, for example, who has been happy, healthy, going to school every day, and on a dime turns depressed, angry, hateful, abusing animals, these kinds of things. It doesn't necessarily mean they're being abused, but it's certainly something to look into, and we talk about that also on the website. And to put that knowledge into practice, to protect those kids, not only our own, but our neighbors' kids, our community's kids, to make sure the schools and the social service workers in our community have the information that they need, and to put all of this into definitive practice. With more than 1 out of 4 girls and 1 in 5 to 6 boys in the United States, with the same kind of figures in Europe and extremely high figures throughout the world of child sexual abuse, and with the devastation it causes, we cannot afford not to do anything about this. The kids are too important, our families are too important, and our communities are too important. And so is the health of our world dependent upon what we do.